Hello Stampers, this is Sheila with Stamping Wishes and welcome to my studio. Today I'm excited to say that it's the Glitter Queen blog hop and our theme this month was anything red, white, and blue. So we really kind of had to think outside the box to come up with something that I thought would incorporate the fact that we're doing this blog on 4th of July. And I just looked through all of my new bundles, my new dies and everything, just to see where my imagination went. Well, the minute I saw this particular one, it reminded me of waving in the wind a flag. That's what this kind of reminded me of. So I got this bundle, which is the it starts with art bundle. I'm absolutely loving it and all of the items that go with it. And for some of you that are new to our catalog, pay attention that they've really done a fantastic job this year, and they always do, but especially this year, I love the layout because you start off with all your bundles, which who doesn't love bundles, right? And if you're looking at that and you want to look at more details, it even tells you where to find the breakout of more items for this bundle on page 53. So, and this is actually showing up on page 7 of it. All right, so let's set this aside and I'll show you what I made with it. Okay, here's the card I made with it. And what I did was to take, because of the other project I'm going to show you in a second is what we're going to go into details with. But what I did was when I cut these, then I just used my scissors and came along the curve of the stitches right here. Let me get a little closer here. And I just kind of curved with it, trimmed off the little edge of it. Let's get that where I don't get it right in the camera. And then again, just kind of curved along this piece and curve along this piece here. And then curved along this piece and curved along this piece until I came up to where I could cut that off. And what this ended up doing was give me these little squiggly wavy stripes, and so I did them in the red and the white, and I used a blue background here, and I'll have all the measurements on my blog for you for the card so that you can duplicate it. For the stars, what I ended up using was the Twilight Punch, and I used the very smallest star that they make here. These two are the smallest. Those were the ones I used to make all the stars that you see here. And then this Celebrate came from our new Wonders. It's a Hostess set, and I just loved it. And I used our new shimmery white embossing powder on it, and I just think it came out really, really cute. I haven't put a greeting inside, but you can see at least the edging there, how I cut it, and then I put a blue strip here. And so I'm really thinking about this one for a birthday that's in July. That's why I didn't want to finish it out just yet. All right, so this was the one project for my anything red, white, and blue. And this was the next one. Don't you just absolutely love it? I had seen, and I'm going to get into details of, but that's what we're going to spend most of our time on, is how I incorporated the sides of the box here and what I did with it. And then we're going to actually make the rose, and that's what I wanted this video more about, to spend the time with it. But anyway, let's go ahead and get started. What I did was I had bring in some of my pieces here, and I changed this up on this particular one. If you'll look at it, this came from the Parcel and Petals stamp set, our bundle, and this was kind of an embossing swirl, which I liked a lot too, because it kind of gave you the striped effect. But I saw these little buttons too, and I thought, well, that would be fun to come across here and do this. But what I decided to do was to trim off my buttons. So let's just do one set of the buttons I wanted to trim off just to make it a little bit shorter than it came to. So we do that. We trim that off, and then we're going to go ahead and take our adhesive and put it on. And set this up here. And I wanted a little bit more. I didn't want much trim on the top and bottom, more so on the sides for the effect that I was going for. So let's move that just about right there. Looks good. Okay, and then we're going to take and just put at random a little spots of the glue here and there. And another thing, you could use the sheet adhesives, and that would, you know, work well for this intricate pieces, but the little glue works just as well too. Now what I did was use the Twilight. Got a little bit of glue sticking to me now. I used a little bit of the bigger star on the Twilight one, and what I like to do, I save all these little strips that I get because I use them for things like this. Is, for example, I can just run it in, and I would just keep running it through, for example, like that, to get the stars that I wanted, and not wasting paper. And then if you do it just right, you could probably end up using this as a trim, but because of the moon on here, it makes it a little bit hard to do. So let's go ahead and put this aside. There's our 4 stars that we need. And then we'll go ahead and put our adhesive on here. And then grab our little stars. I used a little bit too much glue there. You can see it seeping out. But it'll dry. And then for the stars, what I did was use our red rhinestones. I call them my little rubies. I used that for that area of it. Let me just kind of blot off some of that excess glue that I got carried away with there. So let's bring our rubies in and our tool. And this tool, as many of you know, especially some of the stampers that have been around for a while, we used to have piercing tools that we used, and all of our tools were separate for different things that we did. Well, then they came up with this all-in-one type tool to use. This end here changes out with different tools for it, and then this part is the putty. So if you're working with little tiny intricate pieces and stuff, it works real nice for picking them up and placing them where you need them to go and stuff. So if you haven't gotten your tool, you should get it, and they've added a new one that has a little rolling brush. So this way you have your brush and your piercing tool for when you're doing those intricate dies like I did here. I use that to roll it out first and then punch the holes out that were still there. Okay, so let me bring in the box I had already started on here, and we're going to, and I meant to do that individually, but what we have here on the box is, if you look here, you have to excuse some of the red I got on this box. I got carried away earlier working on some stuff, but I wanted to go in and give myself where that little lip was, and I came in with the 1-inch punch, and I actually on my first one did that in 2 layers because sometimes the punches don't like to have that real thick cardstock coming through it like that. So but anyway, there we go, and that leaves us the spot right in there to place this without any interference of our lid. So let's go ahead and put some adhesive and get this last piece on there, and then we'll get started with our rose, because I think that's what everybody's going to be interested in, what was used for making the rose. And I can't say it was my idea. I saw it someplace. I just don't recall where it was, how they used this particular punch that I'm going to show you to make them, but I thought it was brilliant, because you could make so many different color combinations and shadings that will make some gorgeous packaging toppers. Okay, so this comes on down there and closes, and we're going to set this one aside, and if you see, all 4 sides have been decorated now. So our next deal is, how did we make the rose, right? Okay, so yes, our hot air new balloon punch. Love it, love it, love it. And this is what we made our petals with. And I'm going to punch one out and do it. But I've pre-done, it takes 17 of the petals to make the rose. And I went ahead and did 16 of them by shading them in curling them and stuff and getting them ready. But what I'll do is show you how we go about doing that. We'll also need to put as our base for the rose a 1.5 inch circle. So we came in here with scraps, and this whole rose was done with scraps I pulled out of my scrap folder. So that in itself was economical and a good way to use the scraps, especially if you want to do some multicolors. I can't wait to get into some of the purples and pinks and combine some of the pinks to different. So anyway, you just come in here and punch out your balloon, and you can save some of the pieces if you think you would use them again, but depending on your scraps, a lot of times they don't actually come out whole, so I just toss those on out. Okay, so once you've done that, and you will be doing sponging, and yes, you are going to get messy with it because sponging can get messy, especially as much as I used on the petals. But I'm using the cherry cobbler. I thought it emphasized the rose color a little bit more than the real red was. So we want to take and do this. Now our center of the rose, if you recall the one I made here, let me show you, is a swirled up one here. So that's what we're going to do first, is let's go ahead and get that done. And for the sake of timing and stuff, I've got a glue that I use in my scrapbooking, and but I usually, when I'm doing my card making, always use Tombow glue. But this other one that I have dries a little bit faster, and I had really wanted to get this one drying, during the time that we're building the rose, so I didn't want to take a chance of it uncurling on me and not having the time since we are on video. Okay, so that looks good there. And then you'll take on each one of your petals, the little petals that we've got over there, you're going to come and on the side that you've done the sponging, you're just going to do a curving like so of each petal side, okay? And you can do that 3 or 4. I didn't want to break down too much of this, the fiber of the paper, because I still wanted some stiffness. Now this piece here will go up so that it stands up on your petals when you're doing that. So for right now, we're going to use a little paintbrush here. You could use a pencil if you have that or whatever, but once you've gotten some of those fibers going and stuff like that, then you can use something else to do the twirling onto it. And what I'm trying to get is that little kind of a V look here is all I was looking for. So I'm going to come in with some faster drying glue so that we don't have to hold it too long while we start forming the rose. Okay. I'll hold it for just a second to make sure that it's pretty stable before we move on to our other portions of it. Okay, I think it's grabbed it good, so we'll just set that aside for right now. So we're ready for it. So your base, this 1.5 inch circle, you'll want to find your center. So go ahead and fold it in half this way, and then fold it in half the other way. Okay, and then we'll take and start laying our petals down on here. Okay, and what we're going to do, here's one of the petals I showed you. We curled them, we sponged them, and then we folded them up here. So again, I'm going to use some of the fast drying glue this time instead of the Tombow, only because I have a certain time that I need to have this done, and we don't want to be here for the next hour doing this. Okay, so just place it down around the outer circle, and you'll do one at the top, and then one opposite to the top, because you're going to have, in your first row, you're going to have 6 petals. So let me bring out the other 4. So you've got to be able to space them a certain way. And again, I like using my bone folder just to make sure that everything has squished down real well. Okay, and then we're going to fit in, because again, we've got 4 more that we want to fit into the base of your rose. And you can't really go, because you're dealing with 6, you can't go across, because then you'd have 8 around there, and this one worked better with just having 6 for the size that we're doing. But I would imagine you can really, just the base of your circle that you use will allow you to do whatever size rows you really want to do. If you want to do more layers and more petals within each layer, you can most certainly do that. It'd be real pretty. Okay, so then let's go ahead and put this last petal in. Do we have, that's 4 or 5. No, I got one more I get to put in. Okay, let me bring it out. Okay, and we're going to put this one right down here. Again, I'm trying to keep these to the outside base, because the next row we're going to bring in, we're going to have 5 petals, and we'll be going in between these petals, but we'll move our base in a little bit as we go in. Okay, so there we go. You can kind of see it starting to form. All right, so let's get our next number that we need out here. We need 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. Okay. And let's go between is what we're wanting to do, the last ones that we did. Whoops. No, that one's one of the new ones. I thought I'd knocked a petal off there. Okay, and then let's come in between these 2. And as if you can see that down there, it's coming in a little bit each row. Okay. Okay. This is just such a beautiful rose when you get done with it, and so easy, really. It's just a matter of punching and then spending a little bit of time with the sponging portion of it, so you can create the shadows that you want to, and shading that you would have in a natural rose. And we got one more that we need to fit into that next row. Whoops, pulled out my normal glue there. Okay, and we go right in here between. As you can see, it's just continuing to form. So the next row, we will do 3. Okay, and again, we're going to go in between the petals from the last one. So let's go in here, and we're going to go in between. So we go right here. And hopefully I'm keeping my head out. I have a tendency to want to look over inside there. So hopefully I've got them going exactly where they need to go. Be sure today, because this is the Glitter Queen blog hop, to jump on over to everybody's blog. If you're watching this from the YouTube channel, you'll definitely want to jump over to my blog so that you can join in on the other beautiful creations that will be done by all the Glitter Queens that joined in on this project, and on the blog hop. And my blog is stampingwishes.com. Very easy, and you'll go right over there to the blog, and especially if you'll use the link down below, it'll take you over, and it'll take you to this particular blog that we're doing, so that you can join in on the others. So our last ones that are going in here, as far as the open petals go, there's 2 of them, and you're wanting to go in between where the others last 3 was. Okay, so we'll go right in here, and again, make sure you've got those petals tacked down real well. And we're still forming that little rose there, and we'll kind of crunch it together like that. So meanwhile, we're gonna, oops, I may have glued my piece there. Okay, so meanwhile, we're coming back over to this piece here. This was the one that we had earlier, when we first started, rolled up, which would be the center of your rose. So we're going to go ahead and put some, and I got a little generous there with that glue, didn't need that much of it. And I'm going to come down here, because it had that little base too, to make sure that that stands up the way we need it to while it's drying. Okay, and what you can do, it's still drying, so I'm going to blow a little bit on that, is bring your rows together and kind of just crunch it a little bit together like that, so that when you pull it out, it will have stayed fairly well together. Okay, and then you can pull your petals out like so and distribute them around. And if you wanted to spend the time with it, now this particular one I wanted it more closed in and everything, but if you wanted it out a little bit more, you could, and you could even go in here and curl some of these back if you'd like to. But I really like the formation of this particular rose. Now to give it a finish, you know, everything has to have a finish here. Let's bring in my paper towels and our beautiful Frost White all-purpose ink, and I've mixed it in one of our squirt bottles here with our misting bottle, but I've mixed it all the way up with 90% alcohol, probably up to about right here when I filled it up the first time, and then I put 2 generous drops of the Frosted White ink. So now we're going to sit there and give this rose a real cute frosting to bring out the dew and shimmer of the rose. Okay, so let's go ahead and hold it up here and give it a couple of quick squirts, and then I'm going to fold it down here so I can give it to the outside as well. And this dries fairly quick, but you can immediately start seeing the shimmer. And I'm going to bring it up a little bit, see if you see that. You can start seeing the shimmer of that. And you can trim, probably on hindsight, I may have trimmed this down a little bit, but I think it'll be just fine. Okay, now I'm going to use a little bit of tear and tape on this particular one to put my rose, and then we'll put our leaves in real quick. So let's go ahead and pull some tear and tape off here. I didn't know how long the adhesive might work on that plastic. That's why I kind of went this direction with it. But you can use whatever adhesive you prefer. And because this is still a little bit damp with the Frosted White alcohol, which it dries pretty fast, but I was pretty generous with it too. Yeah. It's not going to come off here. Just give me a second while we get it adhering, and then there we go. Got up underneath it. Okay, so let's bring our box on over. And now you're probably saying, well, what are you going to do about the leaves? Well, let me show you what we did with the leaves. Okay, you know our corrugated embossing folder? Well, what I did was to take it over, and I cut 2 pieces that measured about 4 inches by 5.5 inches of the garden green, and I scored them at 1 inch, folded them over, and then brought it in the corrugator. And then what we're going to do, and hopefully I didn't squish it, because sometimes if you press these too hard, when if your layers are tight or your machine is tight, it has a tendency to want to crack on them. Now what I was looking for is to make sure that I had my opening, because you want to cut on, when we do this, we want to cut on the fold of this. So let's bring our lid on the glue so we don't dry it out. All right, so what we'll do, and I think these I'm going to make a little bit bigger than I did my other ones, and see, you can see some of them have unfortunately cracked on me there. I should have dampened my paper a little bit, but they really did on the other come out. But this one has cracked on me, so it's not going to work on that particular one. But let me see if we've got it, if they all cracked or if it was just that upper area. And you just want to do the shape and handle them carefully, because it is that corrugated paper. So, okay, see how beautiful that comes out? And if you wanted to shade that, you could, but I just think it's gorgeous like it is. So there's one there, and hopefully we'll get our other two. This one I evidently didn't do a good job of scoring it in half, but it looks like it's cracking on that same area. So I must have had, my machine must have had a little bit. So we'll just go with the, hopefully 2 of our leaves that are fairly large, and I'll just add another one later because I always like to have at least 3 leaves like this. And you just have to be patient and open them up because they've been squished together. There we go. Well, it really works much easier than I'm making it look, but here we go. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so let's bring this on over here. And we may go ahead and just spritz those real quick too. I think the leaves need to have some sheen to them. And that might be ideal for this too, is to spray them prior to putting them into the Big Shot. And we'll use a couple of the glue dots if they'll come off with the... That's what happens when you try and hurry things up a little bit. Put a couple of the dots in here, and you want to move that as close as you can to the... And we'll put the other one here, and then I'll put another one here. I may even put 4 on this one when we get done, but I just mainly wanted to show you how they were made. Okay. And here we go there. Isn't that gorgeous, though? And you can only imagine it bringing your other leaf in here or even in there. It will be beautiful. Okay, so thank you again for joining us on the Glitter Queen Blog Hop. I hope you've enjoyed this project and that you'll have a good time making your own. Until next time, happy stamping.